To my panel now to discuss, Aaron Gibbs, S&P Investment Advisory Services Portfolio Manager, and Hadley Heath Manning, Independent Women's Forum Policy Director. Hadley, let me start with you. This week we learned that small business profits, according to the NFIB, at an all-time high. We had all-time high in job openings. We're seeing a lot of amazing things, including this market comeback. And the good news is producer prices and CPI consumer prices, at least in this week's readings, were relatively tame.
That's right. We want to see exactly what we're seeing, Charles, where wages are increasing and then the cost of living, the cost of those goods that we all have to consume, isn't increasing at the same pace. This means more money in Americans' pocketbooks, more money in our paychecks that we get to keep rather than seeing that money go out the door on the things that we need to buy. And this is separate from, or in addition to, the money that we get to keep because of changes in the way that the IRS withholds on our paychecks, which is a result of the tax reform package that passed in December. So Americans have a lot to celebrate and should feel very optimistic. You mentioned small business profits. We're also seeing in the big corporate world some changes that are affecting ultimately people in the labor market as they get to see raises and they get to see bonuses and they get to see ultimately more spending on the things that their families want to buy and more investing in the things that their families want to invest in. Well,
certainly this year we've seen consumer discretionary do better than staples. It feels like people won't pay extra for toilet paper, but maybe for a house or an RV, but which is kind of good.
It's the big ticket items that we're really seeing the growth in. I would say one thing that when you do look at the CPI, remember that's ex food and energy. So it's not that there's so much extra money in the individual's
But even with
pockets.
Food and energy this time around, it was
it was still muted. But
it wasn't something that you would start to. It certainly didn't set off any bells.
Yeah,
at the
I
Federal
think the real positive for us taking away is the Federal Reserve isn't going to raise. Because they typically take out the food and energy, and when you look at sort of the base numbers, this just reassures us. Yes, inflation is slow and steady. We're not going to get an extra rate rise.
Right.
Things are going to run in the same pattern.
The two things we need to see, we need, of course, the consumer, 2/3 of the economy, start to step up even a little bit more. I have the theory that they're kind of spooked by the Great Recession. I don't know that will be the spenders, at least a certain generation, that they were in the past. We've seen credit card debt come down 2 months in a row. Hadn't seen that in a long time. On the other end of this, business investment. How do you see both of these things?
So business investment, and when we look at surveys, and particularly where investors are expecting to spend a lot more of their tax benefits, so we've seen taxes drop as one of their concerns, and therefore being reinvesting. So we could see expansion. One of the issues we do know is that it is a tight labor market, so hopefully wages will go up, but some people may have trouble just finding the individuals in order to expand.
Right, that skills thing we always talk about.
Exactly.
But you're optimistic about this economy, the way it's growing, to sustain itself this way?
Yeah, there's nothing that's really flagging us that's saying this is out of whack. Things are just on that slow and steady pattern. And when you look at corporate earnings and you look at how businesses are doing, first quarter, they just knocked it out of the ballpark. We're still looking at a record 21% earnings growth for the S&P 500. Also great earnings even for the mid caps and small caps.
Right.
Those kind of numbers are very reassuring.
Real quick, Hadley, I do want to ask, because those numbers have been so amazing, one of the anxieties on Wall Street has been that, well, it can't get any better than that. But does it have to? As long as we're growing, isn't that the most important thing?
Yes, growth is a very important piece of the puzzle. One other issue I would say, yes, across the public policy board, people pay attention to foreign policy. They pay attention to the Iran deal. They pay attention to crude oil. Another issue here at home that we've yet to address that eats into wage growth in a way and has done so for many years is the cost of health care. Small business and large business alike always cite taxes, regulations, and health care costs as big concerns. And I wish that Congress would ultimately get around to addressing those health care costs, because we're going to continue to see rate increases in health insurance. That's something that affects the bottom line of many industries. It affects our labor markets and the way that our employment situation is tied to health insurance. So we've got to get to the bottom of that problem sooner or later.
Absolutely. And I think that will be part of the discussion for the midterms. Ladies, thank you both very, very much. Well.